Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our lecture today is about powder and granules. Of course, you have seen or used powders in your life, and you know or noticed that powders composed of solid particles of the same or different chemical compositions. So it might have one or more than one chemical compound. These particles should have equivalent diameters less than 1000 micrometer. If we're going to use the term powder in the context of a dosage form, it will describe a formulation in which a drug powder is mixed with other powdered excipient to produce a final product. These powders will be intended for internal or external use. These are some examples of powder dosage form that are available in the market. It could be topical or even oral powdered. Although the use of medicated powders in therapeutics is limited, however, the use of powdered substances in the preparation of other dosage forms is extensive. For example, powdered drugs or medicines may be blended with other powdered fillers and other pharmaceutical ingredients to fabricate solid dosage forms such as tablets and capsules. They may be dissolved or suspended in solvent or liquid vehicles to make various liquid dosage forms such as vials and oral suspensions or syrups, or they may be incorporated into semi-solid bases in the preparation of medicated ointments and creams. So powders could be used as medication itself, or it could be used in the preparation of other dosage forms. The advantages of powder and granules dosage form. We know that solid preparations are more chemically stable than liquid ones. For example, antibiotic syrups. These antibiotic syrups, once they are in powder forms, the shelf life is quite long, between 2 to 3 years. However, once the patient adds water to it, the shelf life drops to 1 to 2 weeks. So they have quite long shelf life, between 2 to 3 years if they are in powder form, but if they are in liquid form, the shelf life is quite short, between 1 to 2 weeks. Other example is the preparation of antibiotics or hormones as injection in the form of lyophilized powders or vials to be reconstituted with water or other solvent before use. The other advantage of powder dosage form is it provides a good way to dispense large dose. If you have medicine to be dispensed in a solid or dry form, and if it has large dose, we can't use it in the form of tablet or capsule because it is inconvenient for the patient, so we can dispense it as a powder or granules. For example, compound magnesium trisilicate, oral powder. The other important advantage is that oral administration of the powder and granules provide faster dissolution rate. We know that for tablet and capsules, these forms need first to be disintegrate and then drug release and dissolve in the body liquid. In powder form, we don't have this step, so there's no disintegration of the formulation. There's directly release and dissolve of the or dissolution, of the medicine. Therefore, the absorption of a drug from this powder preparation is faster than the absorption from tablet or capsule. Powder dosage form has a number of disadvantages. This includes this difficulty to dispense hygroscopic and volatile medicine. The other disadvantage is the agglomeration. In agglomeration, small particles of the powder adhere to each other to form clusters, and this causes segregation. This can be solved by formulating the powder into granules. The other disadvantage is that powder and granules are less convenient for the patient to carry. Of course, using tablet and capsules are more convenient. However, bulk powders can be prepared into heat-sealable laminated sachets so that the individual dose can be conveniently carried by the patient. The other important disadvantage is the unpleasant taste of some of the medicaments. This can be solved by preparing the powder into a taste masked effervescent product or into tablet or capsules. Bulk powders or granules are not suitable or not a good choice for administration of the potent drugs with a low dose, such as digoxin. This is because of the inaccuracy in the method of measurement, where the individual doses are extracted from the bulk using, for example, 5 milliliter spoon. This method of measurement is subjective to variation in the spoon fullness, such as level or heaped spoonful, and it's also subjective to variation in the bulk density of different batches of a powder. Therefore, divided preparations have been used for more potent drugs. However, tablet and capsules have been largely used for this purpose. Finally, powders and granules are also not suitable for the administrations of drugs which are inactivated in the stomach or the drugs that can cause damage to the stomach. These can be presented as enteric-coated tablets or capsules, for example. The particle size of a powder dosage form may range from as big as 1 centimeter to as small as 1 micrometer. According to the particle size, powders can be classified into coarse powder, where all the particles can pass through a number 20 sieve, and not more than 40% of the powder will pass through a number 60 sieve. The other class is the fine powder, where all the particles pass a number 60 sieve and not more than 40% pass a number 100 sieve. The final class is very fine powder, where all the particles pass a number 80 sieve. This is a sieve mesh chart, and you can see here this is the sieve number or the British sieve standard, and this is the particle size in microns. You are not supposed to remember all these numbers or to know them. However, what you need to know is these numbers, the sieve number, represent the number of the opening in each inch of the sieve. So for example, sieve number 5 means that there are 5 openings in each inch of the sieve, and this means that large particles of more than 3000 microns can pass through it. If you go further or down to the higher sieve number of, for example, 500 sieve number, this means that there are 500 openings in each inch of the sieve, and this means this will allow only very small particles of 25 micron in size to pass through it. These are images of sieves that are used in pharmacy or in pharmaceutical preparation, and you can see these are the openings in each in the sieve. So if you count the number of openings in each inch, if you measure a linear inch and you count the number of openings, this will represent the mesh number. And these are how it's packed, so the powder can pass through from a bigger mesh or a smaller mesh number into higher and higher, so finally we get the desired fine particles. Powder characterization, particle size. Particle size can affect a number of factors important to the preparation and application of this dosage form. These include dissolution rate, suspendability, uniform distribution, penetrability, and grittiness. The dissolution rate is dependent on the particle size. So the smaller particle size, the faster the dissolution rate. And the faster dissolution rate provides faster absorption of the medicine and quicker onset of action. So if we need rapid onset of action of the medicine, we need to have a small particle size. Suspendability, which is the ability to maintain a uniform dispersion of the solid particles in the liquid vehicle. This is important in suspension preparation. Uniform distribution of the particles, of the solid particles, or the dry powders, is important in preparation of powder mixture, capsule, and tablets preparation. For intra-respiratory applications, the penetrability, or the ability to penetrate, of the inhaled particles is an important factor. So these particles can reach the desired location within the respiratory tract. The particle size range of this application between 1 to 5 micrometer is used. For dermal preparations such as ointments, creams, and other ophthalmic preparations, no grittiness is important. So no gritty fine powders should be used. Particle size between 50 to 100 micrometer is used for this purpose. To reduce the particle size of the powder, there are a number of methods, and this process is called trituration, comminution, grinding, and milling. The first method or the first way of reducing the particle size is by trituration. In the pharmacy or on a smaller scale, the pharmacist can reduce the size of the powders by grinding with a mortar and pestle, which is called trituration. A finer particle size is obtained by using a mortar with a rough surface, which is a porcelain mortar. In a larger scale, particle size of powder can be reduced by means of hammer mill, where there is a high-speed rotor to which a number of hammers are fixed. These are the hammers, and this is the rotor. So the material is retained, is fed from this opening, and is retained in this chamber until it is small enough or fine enough to pass through these openings of the screen of the desired particle size. To mix powder, there are a number of ways, including spatulation, trituration, sifting, and tumbling. Spatulation. In this method, small quantities of powders are mixed by movement of the spatula through them on a sheet of paper or a surface. This method is not suitable for large quantities of powders or for powders containing potent substances. This is because homogeneous blending is not guaranteed in this method. Trituration. Trituration may be employed both to triturate and to mix powders. If simple mixing is desired without comminution or grinding, the glass mortar is usually preferred. When a small amount of a potent substance or potent drug is to be mixed with a diluent, especially if it is large amount of diluent, then the geometric dilution is used. In geometric dilution, basically this is a brief representation of how to do geometric dilution. So suppose this is a potent drug represented by letter A, and B represent the diluent. So at the first step you mix all the potent drug A with equal amount of B, which is the diluent. So you're going to have A plus B, you have AB, which is a mixture of the potent drug and the diluent. And then you add equal amount of the diluent only to this mixture, so you will have the AB plus B, and then you add equal amount of the diluent B to this mixture, and so on until all the diluent is used in the preparation of this mixture. Another method of mixing powder is by sifting or sieving. Powders may be mixed in this method by passing them through sifters or sieves. This process is not acceptable for mixing potent drug with a diluent. The other method of mixing powders is by means of tumbling. This process is done in a rotating chamber, and mixing of this of powders by this process is thorough or good, but it's time consuming. There are a small scale and large scale motorized powder blenders that are widely used in pharmaceutical industry. Powder and granules can be classified according to the route of administrations. We have powders and granules for oral administrations. These include oral powders, effervescent powders, and granules. We have powders for other route of administrations, include powders for inhalation and nasal powder. And we have powders for external use, which includes powder used for cutaneous application, dusting powder, and ear powder. And we have powder requiring further treatment at the time of dispensing. Powders and granules for oral administration. First of all, we have oral powders. Oral powders are formulation composed of solid, loose, dry particles, and these particles having different or variable particle size. They may contain one or more than one active ingredient with or without excipients. Sometimes coloring and flavoring agents need to be added to the oral powders to make it more acceptable or more pleasant. They are normally or generally taken with water or another suitable liquid. Sometimes it can be swallowed directly without any diluent. All powders and granules should be stored in a dry place to prevent the deterioration caused by moisture. Moisture can cause decomposition of susceptible ingredients, and it might cause adherence and caking of the products, making it unsuitable for use. Another orally administered powder and granules form is the effervescent powders. These are presented as a single dose or multi-dose preparations, and generally, in addition to the drug or the active ingredients of the effervescent powders, it should contain acid substances such as citric acid and carbonates or hydrogen carbonates such as sodium bicarbonate. These two substances are required to react rapidly and effervesce when the patient adds water to the powder. The effervescence is the evolution of gas bubbles in the form of carbon dioxide from a liquid as a result of chemical reaction. The most common reaction in the pharmaceutical preparation is the acid-base. So it's a reaction between citric acid and sodium bicarbonate to produce water and gas. Powders can also intended for inhalation. The use of dry powder systems for pulmonary drug delivery is now very extensive. This dosage form has been developed to deliver one or more of the active ingredients into the lung for the treatment of, for example, asthmatic patients and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Its popularity is reflected in the number of commercial preparations available in a number of sophisticated and increasingly precise delivery devices. These are examples of devices that are available in the market to deliver powders in the form of inhaled powders. Nasal powders are medicated powders that are intended for inhalation into the nasal cavity. by means of special devices. The reason why powders is required to be formulated as a nasal powders is that rapid absorptions is required for potent drugs, such as, for example, glucagon that are used to treat emergency hypoglycemia. Delivery devices have been developed to enhance convenience by the patients and to ensure that a uniform dose is delivered on each occasion. Sometimes the nasal powder can be formulated into hard gelatin capsule with a diluent, inert diluent such as lactose. The capsule is placed in the body of the nasal delivery device, and once the device is assembled, the capsule is broken and releasing the nasal powder into the nasal cavity. The size of the particles of the nasal powder is important to localize their deposition to the nasal cavity, and there are a number of methods to characterize the particle sizes. Regarding powders for external use, we have powders for cutaneous application. These are presented as single-dose powder or multi-dose powders. They should be very homogeneous and free from grittiness. Powders that are intended for use on large open wounds or in severely injured skin, they must be sterile. In the manufacture of powders for cutaneous application, measures should be taken to ensure suitable particle size with regard to the use. In addition, suitable measurements should be taken to ensure their microbial quality and sterility. The other class of powders and granules are those that require further treatment at the time of dispensing. These include powders and granules for oral solution and suspensions, powders and granules for syrups, for oral drops, and for injection. Powders and granules for oral solution and suspensions may contain excipient. This additive will prevent caking. After the solution or suspensions, the resulting product should comply with the pharmacopoeial requirement for oral solutions or suspensions. This product should contain a label, and this label should explain the method of preparation and the conditions of storage and the duration of storage after reconstitution. Powders and granules for syrups. The most important one is antibiotic syrups. These formulated or for patients who have difficulty taking capsules and tablets, such as young children. The other reason is many antibiotics are physically and chemically unstable if they are formulated as a solution or suspension from the beginning. Formulating these as a lyophilized powder of the antibiotics will ensure the longest shelf life until it is reconstituted with water. Once these products are reconstituted with water, the patient is warned that the shelf life is short now and should be dispensed or used within 1 to 2 weeks. This period should be enough for the patient to use the medicine. There are plenty of examples for antibiotic syrups in the market, such as amoxicillin oral suspension and erythromycin oral suspension. Powders can be bulk or divided. Bulk powders are mainly used for non-potent substance. These bulk powders are available in pre-packed amounts, ready to use by the patients. These include antacid and laxatives, Dosh powders, medicated powders for external applications, and yeast powder containing B complex. Other powders are needed to be prepared by the pharmacist. These are called divided powders. Depending on the potency of the medicine or the powder, the pharmacist can either weigh each portion of the powder separately before enfolding into a paper, or if the medicine is non-potent one, then the pharmacist can use the block and divide method. In this method, there is no need for weighing each portion of the powder, but it's only an approximation of the weight. The type of paper that I use to wrap the powder depends on the nature of the powder. So if we have hygroscopic or deliquescent materials, then waterproof or waxed paper should be used. Glassine and vegetable parchment papers are available and can be used in this case. Powder containing volatile components should be wrapped in waxed or in glassine papers. If the powder doesn't contain any of the volatile or the hygroscopic material, then in this case the powder can be wrapped in a white bond paper. We have passed through the term granules many times in this lecture. So what does it mean, granules, and why do we need to prepare powders into this dosage form? One of the disadvantages of bulk powders is that because of the particle size differences, the ingredients of the powders may segregate either at the stage of storage in the final container or in the hoppers of packaging machines. If this happens, then the product will be non-uniform and the patient will not receive the same dose of the ingredients on each time. This can be solved by granulating the powder into granules. So granules are aggregates of a group of particles to form larger particles. These particles should be robust enough to withstand handling. Granules could be spherical or irregular in shape. They are usually in the 4 to 12 mesh number or mesh size range, and we know that the smaller mesh size number, the bigger the particle size. However, granules of various mesh sizes may be prepared according to their applications. Granules can be prepared either by wet method or dry method. Wet method, this method includes basically moistening the powder or the powder mixture with a fluid. This fluid can be with or without a binder, and we're going to discuss what does it mean a binder. Secondly, the resulting paste or dough should pass through a screen to produce the granules of the required particle size. And then these granules are placed on drying trays and dried either by air or under heat. And finally, screening stage to check the resulting granules. We mentioned that we need to moisten the powder before it can be formulated into granules. So these fluids should be volatile so that it can be removed by drying. Should be non-toxic, of course. The most commonly used typical liquids include water, ethanol, and isopropanol. These can be used alone or could be used in combination. We mentioned that we use the fluid that are used to moisten the powder could contain binder. So these binders or binding agents or adhesive agents is used to ensure that particles adhere to each other once the granules is dry. Of course, water is the most commonly used solvent because of its economical and ecological properties. So it's cheap and is friendly to the environment, so it doesn't cause any harm to the environment. Water as well is non-flammable, so there is no need for the expensive safety precaution. However, water can affect the drug stability adversely. It can cause hydrolysis of susceptible products or chemicals. It also needs longer time for drying, so using organic solvent is a better alternative. So organic solvents can be used for water-sensitive medicines or chemicals. It can be used as an alternative to dry granulation, or when there is a need for rapid drying. The second method of preparing granules is by the dry method. In this method, there is no use of liquid, so this method can be used to prepare granules from products that are sensitive to moisture, sensitive to heat, or products that are not compressed properly. So in this method, there is a compacting and size reduction of the mixture to produce the granules. The powder particles are aggregated under high pressure using swaying or high shear mixer granulators. Granules for oral administrations are mainly used for low toxicity, high dose medicines. It might contain one or more active ingredients with or without excipients. These include coated granules, as you see here. This consists of granule core and coated with one or more layers of mixture of various excipients. These coatings are mainly polymers, and these are applied as solution or suspension. Of course, there is the release of the active substances from these coated granules should be tested. The other type of the orally administered granules is the effervescent granules. It's quite similar to effervescent powders. However, it's used to decrease the rate of the solution and to prevent violent and uncontrolled effervescence. We know that sudden and rapid effervescence could overflow the glass, leaving only little residual carbonation in the solution. An important point to know about effervescent granules is that using a combination of citric and tartaric acid is better than using either of the acids alone. If we use tartaric acid alone, this results in granules that can really lose their firmness and crumble. If you use citric acid alone, on the other side, this results in sticky mixture, which is difficult to granulate. So using a combination of the tartaric acid and citric acid can overcome these two issues. The modified release granules are mainly designed to modify the rate, the place, or the time at which the active ingredients are to be released. Quite similar to the modified release granules is the gastro-resistant granules, also referred to as the enteric coated granules. These are of the delayed release type granules and are intended to resist the gastric fluid. So you can see here, these coated granules are intact when it is in the stomach where the pH is low, while when the pH is raised to 5 or 7, which is the pH of the intestine, the coating started to disintegrate, releasing the active therapeutic agent into the intestine. These polymers are mainly gastro-resistant polymers. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask, and thank you so much.